Okay, so this is part 10, listening comprehension. All right, Caitlin, so our title of our story is How Did the Turtle Get Its Shell? So what do you think our story is going to be about?
Turtles.
All right, and as my son likes to say, he goes, turtle, turtle. He's so freaking cute. All right, so I'm going to read the story, and we're going to stop periodically to talk about it and do our SOS. SOS. Okay. Most people will agree that turtles are amazing animals. As we all know, these water-loving reptiles have a hard shell to keep them safe from predators and other dangers. You might be surprised to find out that early turtles didn't use their shells for shelter. Instead, they used them for burrowing. Burrowing is a behavior of some animals. It refers to digging a hole or passage into or under something. Eventually, turtle shells evolved into what they are used for now, protection. However, it took a long time to get to that point. So let's stop there for a second. So let's draw some pictures here to represent what's going on. So who is our subject here?
Turtles.
Turtles. Let's draw a turtle. And what do we know about turtles?
They didn't always use their shells as protection like they do now.
Okay, what did they use it for to begin with?
In the beginning, they used to go for shelter by burrowing under things.
Okay, so burrowing. So burrowing, as they put it in here and they explained, is they would dig a hole or bury it. So the turtles would use it for burrowing instead of protection. But now they use it for what?
Now they use it for protection.
Okay. And how would you describe the shell? Is it like a soft shell?
No, it's a hard shell.
It's a hard shell. So do we want to we have a picture of a turtle, maybe we want to make a note here about...
How hard the shell is?
Yeah, because it's used for what?
Protection.
Okay. You could draw like a shield. Like protection, the Sloman shield.
Okay.
Do you know what the Sloman shield is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't know how to draw it.
Just draw a shield of any sort. You don't have to draw the Sloman shield.
Good.
Okay. It is important to know that ribs play a big role in both the movement and breathing of all animals. The ribs of whales, snakes, dinosaurs, humans, and almost all other creatures look very much the same. Turtles are the only exception. Their ribs have been heavily expanded. So what does that mean?
They got bigger.
Their ribs are like wider, you know. And think about it. Like think about turtles. They're like not small. They're wide. Early turtles were called proto-turtles, and they used their narrow shells for digging underground to escape the harsh, hot South African environment. So where were they originally from?
South Africa.
South Africa. Yeah, you're right. And their ribs are. How are they compared to human and other animals?
Expanded.
They're expanded. They're big. Maybe we want to make that note and draw something to show bigger ribs. And so what did they use their shells for?
They used to use it to dig underground.
To protect from what?
The heat.
The
in
heat.
South Africa.
Yeah, so maybe we want to draw that. All right. Recently, some surprising and staggering discoveries were made in South Africa regarding turtles, their ribs, and their shells. Researchers there unearthed a large number of well-preserved proto-turtle fossils. So what does that mean, turtle fossils?
Dead turtles.
Yeah, so they found what are the fossils?
The remainder of the bones.
The bones, so maybe we want to make a note of that. So researchers found the turtle bones, right? One of the finds was a complete skeleton. It even had its feet attached. Ew. All of the fossils showed signs of widening of the ribs. However, those ribs, which eventually make way for bigger and better shells, provide these first turtles with very little protection. So the turtle bones, their ribs didn't what?
Protect them.
In the beginning, no, they weren't protective. So maybe we want to put a note there, like draw the ribs and how they didn't actually protect. The ribs did offer something helpful though, a stable base from which the turtles could operate two powerful front limbs used as digging tools. If you've ever seen turtles digging in the sand, you know they've hung on to those forceful legs. So what was the purpose of the ribs to begin with?
So that they can dig.
Dig, right. So they had to support what?
Their shells.
Not their shells. What did they use to dig?
Their hands.
Okay, no, limbs, yeah.
And then
All right, so why don't we put that down? So the ribs supported their limbs so they could dig. That's a good drawing of a turtle. Nice limbs. Okay. The researchers suggest the new powerful front limbs greatly improved the proto-turtles' digging and burrowing abilities. This points to two important developments. First, using their front legs to dig meant turtles no longer needed to use their shells to dig. Second, being able to dig and burrow like a champ meant turtles could begin exploring new watery areas. So what did these new abilities allow them to do?
dig.
To dig without using what?
Their limbs.
Not without their limbs, but without their...
Their
What did they originally use to dig?
their ribs.
No.
No, they used
What was the first thing they used to dig with?
their shells.
Their shells. So first, using their front legs to dig meant no longer needing to use their shells to dig. So that's important. So no longer needed their shells to dig.
Because then they used their limbs to dig.
Yeah, which was they were able to do with because they had what?
They had
What part of their
the
body?
ribs to support their limbs so that they can dig.
Excellent. All right. Second, being able to dig and burrow like a champ meant turtles could begin exploring new watery areas. So they could start exploring what?
Swimming. They could start swimming and exploring the water.
Yeah, which means that they didn't have to stay settled just in
The dirt and like the
what was their problem?
desert.
The desert, the hot heat, yeah. So they could swim good. All right. Being able to travel and live in these new spots probably allowed these earliest turtles to survive the Permian-Triassic extinction event, our planet's most severe extinction event. We can't say the same for many other animals who unfortunately died off. So, what do you think that extinction was? The extinction of
The turtles.
They didn't become extinct, but who did during that extinction period? What animal used to rule our world?
Dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs, yeah. So their shell and their ribs and their ability to adapt to the environment helped them to survive. So let's make that note. Okay. So what were the two things that helped them survive there?
Their shells and their limbs.
Well, their limbs were stronger because of their
Shells.
and
Their ribs.
their ribs. So the shell and the ribs are really what helped them survive. Because their ribs are what? How are they different?
They're expanded.
They're expanded, right. Over time, shells evolved and began... Oh, did you cheat
I'm
something?
just gonna switch the arrow. Sorry.
Okay. Over time, shells evolved and began to serve turtles differently. Turtles started to depend on their shells as armor and not so much as shovels and spades. This also sounds straightforward enough, but in order for the shell to change in function, turtles had to undergo significant adjustments to their bodies. For example, growing stronger, more protective shells required the widening of the ribs, which in turn hindered movement. So what happened?
They had to like get used to their new bodies.
Their new bodies, and what happened to their ribs? They got even
Bigger.
They got even bigger, which kind of limited how
Fast they can move.
how fast they could move. Yeah, and their shells started to become what? Harder. That's because when the ribs became bigger, the sides of the turtles' bodies shrank. As a result, their walking was more labored and they eventually became the slow walkers we know and love today. So what happened to the body as the ribs got bigger?
The turtle got smaller and that's why they're so slow.
Yeah, their sides got smaller and so they couldn't walk as quick. But now what was the positive of this? They had a shell to do what?
They had a shell to protect them.
They had a shell to protect them, right? Okay. Thicker ribs also cause turtles to breathe less efficiently. What does it mean, less efficiently?
Not a lot.
Not efficiently means to do something well, like to get it done easily without problem. If it's less efficiently, what happened? They couldn't.
They have a harder time breathing.
Yeah, they're having a harder time to breathe. If you've ever tried to run with a cold or serious sinus infection, you know that not being able to breathe well can make you move slower. The same is true in the case of turtles whose ribs were widening. This affected their breathing and they began to walk around even slower than before. So now what's happening with them?
Now they're having a hard time breathing, so that makes them move slower.
Even slower, right? All right, so let's put a new note there. Okay. Who would have thought that turtle shells started out as handy shovels as opposed to body armor or protective shelters? Over time, turtles, like other animals, underwent changes and their shells turned into safe havens. What does that mean, safe havens?
Like where they're safe.
And what does haven mean, like?
Helpful.
Okay, what would be another like way we could say it, like turned into their
happy place.
Okay. What's the purpose of the shell though?
To protect them.
To protect them. So, yeah, so it's their shells turned into their safe havens or their protection. The best part is today's turtles are still first-rate diggers thanks to the strong front legs they developed long ago. Now they have the best of both turtle worlds. So what are the three things that turtles have?
They have protection.
Mm-hmm.
They're able to swim, so like their limbs,
Mm-hmm.
and they're able to dig.
They're able to dig, swim, so they have strong what?
They have strong limbs
And
ribs.
Their ribs to develop those or help those limbs, right?
Yeah.
All right, so let's go and retell. All right, so let's go through. So what did we first learn about turtles?
Turtles have hard shells for protection.
And did they always have those hard shells?
No.
So how did their shells, what was the
Because
purpose?
They used to have to dig they used their ribs. They had big ribs and they used their shells to dig to keep cool in South Africa because the sun was so hot.
Yeah, they had to burrow themselves in the sand. Okay, but they then what about the bones that they had?
People found turtle bones.
Okay, and are they the same or
No, they weren't the same
as what? Like what other types of animals? Like
as like the dinosaurs. Like with these turtle shells, the feet were still connected to the bone.
yeah. And what did we find out about their ribs? Were they like normal ribs?
Their ribs have expanded.
Okay. So,
They weren't being protected by the ribs as they were before.
okay, good. So what were the ribs being used for? To support the what?
To support the limbs so that they can dig.
All right, good. And then what did we know about their limbs? Were they, flimsy limbs or?
No, they're being used to dig. The turtles no longer use their shells to dig, they use their limbs.
Okay, so how were their limbs? Were they weak?
They were strong.
They were strong, okay.
And then turtles also can swim now.
Because of what?
Because of their limbs.
All right. And so what happened because of all this? What did they survive?
The dinosaurs.
Yeah, why?
Because they could swim, they can hide in their shell. Their ribs and their shells help them survive.
Okay, good. So what happened with turtles eventually?
The ribs got bigger and the shells got harder. And then the turtles went from being big to being small. And they have a hard time breathing, so that makes them move slower.
Okay. And what is the purpose of the turtle shell now?
It's to keep them protected.
To keep them protected. And so they got bigger and their shells got bigger, right?
Mm-hmm.
But their bodies got smaller. So what did this do to them? How did this impact their movement?
It makes them move slower.
It makes them move slower. And how about breathing?
It makes them breathe slower because they can't breathe as easily.
Yeah, it's kind of like this difficult way to move and breathe. And the purpose of the shell, what is the purpose of our story here? The shell did what?
The shell progressed after the years.
Yeah, it changed over the years and it helped the turtle do what?
Survive.
Survive. Nice job.